This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
Wait a second. How can somebody without legs play college sports and professional sports? And, rather than waste time describing it, just Google Dave Stevens, Augsburg football, or Dave Stevens, St. Paul Saints, and you can actually see the footage of me playing sport.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I am excited to have you here today with me. Man, let me tell you, I got a great show for you today. And I know you're thinking, Barrett, here you go again. You always say you have a great show. I have a remarkable guest today. I mean, remarkable. And you're gonna say at the end of the show, Barrett, you were right. You're just gonna say it. You're gonna say, Barrett, you were right, because, well, I'm always right on that. I always have great guests. But let's just say, for those people here, if it's your first time listening or watching the Media Boss Podcast, let me tell you what the podcast is about first, okay? This podcast is for those of you who need to reach more people, who need to get in more places. And what I'm telling you to do right now is you can do it all through media. Some people have been taught, focus on one area of media. And I say focus on all areas of media. Get yourself out there, because your audience that wants to pay you is consuming their information through some form of media. If you're not there, you're missing them and they're missing you. So that's what the Media Boss Podcast is about, to make sure that you can focus on getting your message out there in all forms of media. Now, the one thing I want you guys to do right now is make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and make sure you are sharing it. Make sure you are letting everyone know that you are listening or watching on YouTube the Media Boss Podcast. I want to make sure you do that. Now, one thing I love to start every show with is a segment I like to call the Media Minute. Now, what's the Media Minute? The Media Minute is where I just take a little bit of time and share with you something that I heard or read about the media, about something going on in the media, or something I think you should know. Now, today, there's a young lady. Her name is Shannon Monet. Shannon Monet. Young, she's a teenager. And sadly, she was being bullied a lot of times because of racism and so forth in her school. I think she was the only African-American child in her school. And she was very lonely and had some really, really bad thoughts going on in her head, if you know what I mean. And what she did, her mother noticed the change in her behavior. For all you parents out there, make sure you're looking at that. And what she did is she empowered her daughter. Now her daughter uses media. She uses YouTube. She uses podcasting. She goes on streaming to help empower other teens who are having mental struggles. I think it's a wonderful story because she's helping people and she's using the media to let everyone know that you are loved. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So today, that is your Media Minute. If you get a chance to see Shannon Monet, check her out and support her. Try doing that if you can. So my guest today. Now, let me tell you something. You all know I work in television. You know I work in television. I never got an Emmy. But my guest today, he got an Emmy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He got 7. He got 7 Emmys. Okay. In high school, I played football. I was pretty good in baseball, in basketball. Never played 3 sports. Well, I played track. I did track. But I played football and I was okay. Well, this guy was a 3-star athlete. I mean, I'm just saying, he played 3 sports. And did pretty well. Did so well, he tried out for the Dallas Cowboys. You get in the picture that I got a pretty good guest coming on today. This guy, he's done work for ESPN. I interviewed for him, didn't get hired, but I interviewed for him. I mean, I'm just saying, he's better than me. I'm just telling you, he's better than me, okay? So I want to bring on, and by the way, he has a phenomenal podcast. Yeah, this is a media show, right? He has a phenomenal podcast as well. And he motivates people all around. Oh, by the way, did I mention that he has no legs?
What?
You heard me. You hear me in the background. He has no legs. And I'm going to bring on to the Media Boss Podcast none other than my friend, Mr. Dave Stevens. Dave, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast, my friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where your listeners are hearing this. It's awesome to be here bright and early and see your smiling face. I'm glad we met earlier and interacted. Your story is amazing, and nobody's better than anybody. And I'm sure your audience now is sitting there going, wait a second, how can somebody without legs play college sports and professional sports? And um, you know rather than waste time describing it, just Google Dave Stevens Augsburg football or Dave Stevens St. Paul Saints, and you can actually see the footage of me playing sports. It's on YouTube. I've been on every single silly TV show that's out there. So, it's very humbling, even at my advancing age, that people still like to hear my story. And, I was pre-internet. So it was word of mouth and a couple of big old time TV shows that I was on called That's Incredible that helped, spur me. And for your people over 50 listening, I was also on the same show with a 5-year-old kid named Tiger Woods. Wow. We were in the green room together. So you never know whose paths you're going to cross. And I'm just glad ours have crossed. And I'm grateful to be here.
Man, I'm happy to have you here. You're really, really, really making me feel old. But but yeah, it's funny because you said advancing age. I said, well, aren't we all advancing age? So, but it's funny because when I did the research on you, I saw this show, That's Incredible. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I remember that. And
yeah, it changed my life because in those days, we had like 5 TV stations. So you either watched ABC, NBC, or CBS, and millions of people saw me, and it really changed my life. It led to a football scholarship in Minnesota. It led to a TV job in Minnesota. And, again, this poor little kid without legs that living in a 1-room house, not knowing what I was going to do to, I wanted to be on TV and be a broadcaster. And I also wanted to play professional baseball. And how you tell a kid 40 years ago that doesn't have legs, that's poor, that you can achieve your dreams. And, guess what? I'm living proof that if you work hard enough, despite what people might on the outside see as a setback, if you have that fortitude and the teamwork, because again, I didn't do it by myself. I had coaches and friends and mentors and things like that we all need. I wouldn't be where I am today. I've lived a Forrest Gump life, and I don't know if that's an offensive term, but some people are allowed to say certain terms if it's based on, your niche. But I've pinch hit for Darryl Strawberry in a minor league baseball game. I've, thrown a touchdown pass to Ricky Williams in a flag football game. Wow. I've sacked famous quarterbacks like Michael Vick, who retired the next day in a charity football game. I sacked him, and if a guy without legs sacks you, it's time to walk away. So Vick quit the day after our game. But I'm lucky that at age 56 I can still go out and talk to people and influence kids to realize you don't need prejudices, and teach parents that, hey, we are all different, but this is my normal, this is your normal. You're a person of color, you've had to live with a lot of challenges, so we're all in this melting pot together. And it's great that you have a platform like this to help people realize that, hey, there are really good stories out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure you heard in my media minute, I was talking about the young lady who is encouraging other people because of what she went through, and she's actually using the media to do so. Let me ask you, I know you said you always wanted to be a broadcaster. Now, at what age did that spring on you that you wanted to do that?
13 or 14. Really? Like, if you watch the That's Incredible show, this nervous 16-year-old comes out on his fake legs, and Fran Tarkenton says, what do you want to do if you can't play professional baseball? And I'm like, I'd like to replace Howard Cosell, who was a famous broadcaster. And so I had that drive and determination. And, I always had that realistic thing in my mind. Look, if I can't get to that next level as an athlete, I sure as heck can do it by covering it and telling that story and being a journalist where people know me not for not having legs, but the ability to tell a story or to do the things that help tell a story, like I did at ESPN for 20 years. And so, like I said, my dreams came true. My dreams aren't over. We all need to continue to set goals in life. So I wake up every day without legs. I look down, they're not going to grow. So I always have to overcome a challenge every day. And I just want people to understand that we all have those challenges. You have to wake up and get up. It's those that sit there and wallow in pity or misery or woe is me, when there are people out there with spina bifida who are blind, who have, no hearing, that are out there being lawyers and doctors and contributing to society. Because again, we get, I tried to take the dis out of disability, and I'm hoping that others, can look at and teach teach, that I teach empathy instead of sympathy, to realize that people with disabilities should be working in the military, creating our platforms for air defense and things like that. You don't need to be able to carry a backpack and run 20 miles, or it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is or any of that kind of stuff. We in this disabled world are the biggest minority in the world, but we have the smallest voice. And so it's important, to be able to tell people my story and for her to share her story and what she went through, so people realize, yeah, there are way worse things in the world that we are not paying attention to.
That is true. I mean, yeah, you remind me of when I was working at CBS. I remember, if anyone has ever spent a winter in New York, you know what I'm talking about. I was walking, it was freezing in December, and the wind was coming through the buildings off the water in New York. And I was walking to a building, and I noticed the homeless people. And it just dawned, and it just hit me. And I guess God spoke to me, and it just said that, Barrett, no matter how bad things get for you, someone has it worse than you. So I can't wallow in my situation and thinking, woe is me. I have to realize that I have an opportunity to do something. And what you have done with your opportunity is just freaking amazing, man. I'm just like, I'm humbled. You said you were humble. I'm humbled because it puts things in perspective. You know what I'm saying? It puts things in perspective as to what we can do. And I love the fact that not only, you've played all these sports, you've gotten into broadcasting, I want to talk about your podcast, man, Gary Stein and Steven. So tell me more about how that began.
Two friends in Minnesota were trying to do almost like a Wayne's World. I just watched it and I'm like, man, you guys are my friends, but that's really not very good quality. And I said, I could spice up your stuff. I know a platform where I can do shows. And I said, I happen to have a lot of famous celebrities in my back pocket that wouldn't mind supporting. And so we started out, got a couple of guests. I'm trying to teach them and guide them how to ask questions. And luckily on certain platforms, I can message them during the show and say, hey, follow up with this. And then suddenly these people are like, wow, that's not a bad podcast. And we do it visually as well. So I'm doing all the camera switches. I edit all the video on my cell phone. I airdrop it. Like it stands above others because, again, for your listeners, you can't see, but over my shoulder, you get these things. They're not just participation trophies.
Yeah.
And so I have a really high, platform of how I expect things to do. And then suddenly we're getting Hall of Famers, and we're getting my ex-ESPN colleagues, and we're getting, we have future great guests lined up, and the word's getting out there. And now I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid to talk about shaving your lower body parts and keeping groomed by Manscaped. And I'm doing silly commercials that, is starting to pick up. And so it's funny that an old man can, do this. I'm not old. You and I are not old, but the TikTokers think we're old.
They think we're old, right? And hey, and sometimes when I get up in the morning, I think I'm old. But no, I mean, and that's amazing because I was listening to one of your episodes that like Linda Cohn that you interviewed from ESPN, and I love Linda Cohn. Linda Cohn's one of my favorite ESPN analysts, and I love listening to her. And you get some great guests on there. Now I gotta ask, what were some of the growing pains of the podcast for you as far as getting involved with it?
I think learning all the technology and making sure that you put the right spellings of people's names and trying to watch a show and be in it, but still be able to, okay, I need this video playing here while he's talking. Because again, unlike other podcasts, I'm a visual guy, and I'm trying to remember I need to refer to what they're listening to and not they're seeing. And that's been the biggest challenge. But, I think some of the guests too, like out of the gate, we had John Rocker, who for your non-sports fans was a racist baseball player who got kicked out of the game basically because of his opinion on race and sexuality and all that stuff. He just bluntly said some things. I figured 20 years later, here's a platform. You can come clean. I'm sorry. No, he says some things that, we had to bleep so much.
Really?
Every word was an F word. And then he's like, oh, I'm not racist. My girlfriend is Korean and her parents just got off the boat. And I'm like, you can't say those things in this day and age. And so he he hung himself more than he did anything good. But then you get Ali Steinberg, who comes on, and we have a candid conversation about why there aren't black coaches in college football. And then I follow that up with Hugh Jackson from Grambling State, who talked about what the minority situations are in the NFL. And he had lawsuits and things, but he and I are friends. And so I'm so lucky that, I'm not ESPN, this podcast, and my co-hosts, we're not out to talk about DUIs and anything. If you've overcome something, if you've got a good second chance other than John Rocker, we want to give you that platform to give you that opportunity where people can see, yeah, I can change, or I beat addiction, or I did this or that.
And you bring up an excellent point when you say we're not here to talk about the DUIs. One of the things that I was a media major in college. And back then, back when we were in college, there was such a thing as journalism. And now it's turned into what I call sensationalism.
Absolutely.
And I tell people, because one of the things that I'm doing, and we're going to talk afterward, because I want to get you, and what I'm working on an initiative. I'm actually working with a king in Africa to actually bring about some more media in education in his country. And what I'm going to be doing is something called Media Monarch, where we're going to be teaching them basics of media, but I want to teach them to get away from the propaganda. And I want to teach them about journalism. And I said, that's one of the things that when you said we're not talking about the DUI, I said, there used to be, because I talk from a sports perspective myself, I tell people, I said, there used to be a code between the media and the athlete that you don't talk about my personal life. We talk about the sport.
Yeah. Unless I've had a baby or getting married.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And now it's like, how can I ruin your life? And that's one of the things that bothers me so much about media today. And it's that the media never takes responsibility for it. I've noticed that. The athlete always said, well, it's our fault. How is it our fault? You did this. Well, you didn't have to report it. And that's one thing that bugs me about it. I had to, when you said that, it triggered that in me, because I wanted to bring that up.
Well, the good part of technology and the bad part is, Barrett, is now we all have these little smartphones. And so now you can be in a bar and catch an athlete doing something wrong, or a politician or something. And it's not like, again, we all have private lives and we all make mistakes. But now there's no trust between the media and professional athletes. And I'm trying to bring that back. I'm trying to let them see, look, this dude has no legs. He's going to be straight with me. And that's how I get to go to the Super Bowls and do all these things that I continue to do, because, I'd rather know who coached you. Where did your mentors instill in you? I don't, Darryl Strawberry and we don't talk about the debauchery and things that the Mets do. We talk about, hey, he's a minister now. He's saving lives. He's impacting. He's doing those kind of things. So, it's horrible that, I was in an era, and you were too, where we kind of protected the media. And you especially in New York back in the 80s would have never had an Eli Manning situation like that. No. It would have been kept internal. It wouldn't have been broadcast. And, and so nowadays nobody trusts anybody. Nope. And on a given moment's notice, those athletes turn into the big story because of those mistakes. And then everybody goes out like swarming birds and, and just like, whoa.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you. And that's why, platforms like yours are so needed. I mean, like I said, you and I are going to do some work together. I just know that, because I like that vibe there of actually just telling the story, man, and forget about all the ancillary things that went on in their lives. And I like doing that, because and that's in any media platform, because like you, for instance, you're not only podcasting audibly, but you also have the video part of things going on. And and you and I both know the people, and I want people who are paying attention to this podcast to understand this. The people who listen to your podcast are not always the same people who watch your podcast, because people that like audible, people that like video. And they're usually a different group of people, which is why I always say on this podcast, you want to do both, because you want to capture all those audiences.
Yeah. I want to see your smile. You have a great smile, and you want to see those, but you want to see the face of Linda Cohen when she's talking about people that we've lost in death, at ESPN, and how personal those are, because, people might not know who a John Clayton was, but if they see the video of her talking over it, she goes, "Oh, that funny looking little man, he was beautiful on TV." And the Stuart Scott, those kind of things that you want to bring up to. So yeah, I love to teach. I have a program at Quinnipiac University where I'm trying to teach media like you and get these kids to realize that, again, TikTok loses your attention span in 7 seconds, but we can give a meaty, that's the problem. Everybody wants to see video of somebody hitting somebody in the testicles with a baseball. Ha ha, funny, move on, right? We don't want to see those poignant stories of a child taking those first steps on braces the first time, or recently me skating on the ice playing sled hockey with a child who'd never skated before, and she's on the ice, and suddenly the NHL is noticing what you do. We just, like, I don't know why I'm bigger, and I'm not being narcissistic, because my content would blow people's minds, yet I don't get the clicks, I don't get the shares, I don't know what, those algorithms. I refuse to pay for it. You can pay to have people see your stuff. I'm like, why? If it's the wrong way. It should be organically.
I agree. I agree. And I want to talk to you about your motivational speaking, but we're going to take a break right here. And we're going to come back with more of Dave Stevens here on the Media Buzz podcast. So everybody stick and stay. We'll be right back. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Okay, guys, we are back with the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I am here with my fantastic guest. I told you it was fantastic, Mr. Dave Stevens. Dave, now we talked about your podcast. We talked about your broadcasting career, but you are also a motivational speaker. Now, let me ask you something. How do people relate to a man with no legs coming out on stage to speak to them? Is your reception always the same, or is it different in different places?
I always try to come out, I know if people, my entire philosophy in life is if people are going to stare at me, I might as well give them a show. And I love it. I've been a ham since I was 3 years old, putting on shows for the Shriners and things like that. But the worst part about COVID was it kept me isolated. And again, you can pop on a video and see a guy, but we're looking at this and people aren't seeing that I'm sitting on the ground, with no legs. This is my studio. Right. So it's more impactful, almost like that shock at a circus when you see something that's like you've not seen before. Here's a man walking on stage, because I don't use my wheelchair when I speak, walking on his arms. And then to try to tell the narrative of my life, just like, you did what? No, you don't have legs. No one's ever done that. That's not possible. And so I've got a visual presentation that I do while I'm talking so they can see, because luckily everything pretty much has been documented in my life. Yeah. And so, and I love talking to the kids because, again, as we said earlier, you make that, you take away prejudices, you break down those barriers, you get them asking questions, you get them thirsting for knowledge, opening them up to a different thing, because again, they've never seen a dude without legs before. So, and then the older people that are like, some are like, uncomfortable. They don't want to watch, but then they have all those questions, that the kids have, like, how do you go to the bathroom? What do you do? All those silly things that the kids will ask, but the adults are too embarrassed to. And that's the same when I meet people in public. I hear the things every time. That man has no legs. He's a freak. He's a monster, and then you see a woman pushing a cart with her child, and the kid looks at me. This was last Halloween, and the woman looks at me, and the kid goes, "Wow, mommy, that man has no legs." And the mom says, "Yes, isn't that horrible?" So then that child is taught somebody who's different without a disability is a bad thing. And I wish I could have just shook the kid's hand and said, "Hey, it's okay to be different. It's okay to look like me," because I want them to ask those questions. So we're not different based on our color or because I'm missing an arm or a leg. Like you eliminate the ignorance of prejudices.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you're right. It is an ignorance, and it's something that definitely needs to be.
It's taught. Racism is taught. You don't inherit racism.
Exactly, and all bigotry is taught. So yeah, that's a great point. Now let me ask you. So you mentioned COVID. Since COVID, as far as you're speaking, have you had to change some things as far as like streaming presentations and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, Quinnipiac discovered me, because I started this little crappy podcast on Zoom when I first started out, and they're like, "How did you get Jim Abbott? How did you get the Village People?" And I'm like, and so, I learned new tricks.
You got the Village People?
I do. I'm friends with the Village People, honest to say.
Oh, we have to talk. No. Well, one of my good friends is a singer with them. He's the Army guy, James.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What a small world.
He and I used to do karaoke together in Atlanta years ago. He was one of the shyest guys, and he would just sing one song usually every night. And then, I'm serious. Then the next thing I know, I'm looking at he's with the Village. I'm like, what? So we talked a couple months ago, and he said, yeah, he's been with the Village People for a while because he was their production manager, and now he's singing with them, touring around the world. So I'm like, you and I, we definitely have some synergy here.
Yeah, 52 concerts. I always thought, hey, if they ever needed a dude in a wheelchair, I needed to know every song. And as a little kid growing up, and I'm saying since 1977, I loved the Village People because they were different.
They were.
I didn't know a big part of their heritage was gay.
Yeah.
I just said, here's 6 different guys, and I'm different, and I can associate with that.
And that's really when they came out, that's really what it was about. It wasn't about, sexual orientation when they came out. It really wasn't. It was just being different, because that was the whole thing of them in the different costumes, because it was about being different. So it was cool. But yeah, good friend of mine, he's actually with the Village People. That's so funny. So Dave, before I let you go, man, tell me, is there anything that you're doing right now that you want the audience to know about?
Just a couple of the things I'm working on. AbilityMedia.com is our college where we're putting out all of the, I'm going to New York. When's Monday? Tomorrow. To go to Fashion Week and be on the runway for Runway of Dreams, which creates clothing for disabled people. And so I'm bringing Ability Media to shoot that. And so Ability Media gets to do things with me at the Super Bowl and all these kind of things. And then Dave Stevens Speaks, man, follow me on every single possible platform that you can, because again, I'm not narcissistic. I'm just trying to share good stories like you. I was at a baseball camp for disabled kids yesterday, and, trying to change lives that way through sports. And so, follow Dave Stevens Speaks on every platform, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. That's how we became friends. And, it's amazing the power that we have from our little laptops and from the things that we can do, because if you have a voice and you can use that good voice like you, doctor, then you're doing good.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Dave Stevens, everybody. Dave, thank you so much for being a part of the Media Boss podcast. Everybody, please make sure you are supporting him. Make sure you're subscribing to his podcast as well. Great content, great shows. I love it all. So Dave, thank you once again for being a part of this.
Thank you, brother.
No problem. Hey guys, look, I got something for you. If this is your first time that you don't know about this, I got a free gift for you. That's right. I'm going to give you my free training on to help you get more clients. What? Yes, more paying clients at that. So what I want you to do is go to www.5waystoPayingClients.com. 5waystoPayingClients.com. It's my complimentary gift to you guys. I want to make sure that you all can take advantage of what I have to offer you. It's no charge to do that. Do it right now. Also, stay right here, because we're going to be right back as we get out of here on the Media Boss podcast. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. Everybody, we are back with the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and like I told you, I had a remarkable guest. I didn't lie to you. I never lie to you guys. And Dave Stevens was just that guy. So before we go, I want to make sure that you guys are supporting the Media Boss Podcast as well. So go to patreon.com/Media Boss Podcast. Make sure you check out our content. Love it there, like it there. And if you do, we have some nice perks for you there as well. Also, take advantage of the offer I just made to you, 5ways2payingclients.com. Take advantage of that. It's a complimentary training I did. Now, for those of you who are really serious about making sure your media is everywhere, I'm talking about books, I'm talking about podcasts, I'm talking about streaming TV, I'm talking about film, I'm talking social media. If you want to make sure your media is everywhere and if you are omnipresent, what I want you to do is to come to my challenge. That's right. I have a challenge, a 5-day challenge called the Make Money from Media Challenge. Make Money from Media Challenge. All you have to do is go to makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com. Make sure you go there, makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com, register for the challenge. And I'm telling you, I got something even more special for those of you who register as a VIP. That's right, as a VIP, you get something even more special. So make sure you do that. Also, if you are interested in starting your own podcast and you want some help with it, how would you like to have it done for you? Huh? Sound good? Well, text me. Text the word podcast to 929-244-4323. Podcast to 929-244-9323. 244-9323. Now, also, what I want you to do is subscribe to the Media Boss Podcast. Subscribe to the Media Boss Podcast. Leave a review. Tell us how much you love Dave Stevens on here today. Tell us how much you love the podcast. Give us a great review, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Media Boss Podcast. Now, you know how we say goodbye. Every time we look dead into the camera, we get close to the mic, and we say, Media Boss out.